The Crystal Chronicles sub-series of Final Fantasy is pretty much dead now despite an HD remaster of the original game coming out in late 2020. But in the late 2000s, Square Enix shotgun blasted 5 games in a very short time. It expanded on the original's very minimal story and turned Crystal Chronicles from a quirky Nintendo title that people looked fondly on to a full-on sub-series. And you know what sucks? The fucking Moogle gets tired of holding the chalice. Get a haircut and suck it up. I'm playing toys. I don't know what incentivized this, and I don't know anyone personally who played the games after the first GameCube game. I have 3 of them and one of the OSTs, so that might put me in the 99th percentile of Crystal Chronicles stuff owners. And nobody really talks about them on the subreddit either, but that's the same subreddit that asks, hey, do you remember Final Fantasy 13 too? Yeah, dude, people like that game specifically. Try karma farming better next time. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles My Life as a King and My Life as a Darklord do not offer a standard Final Fantasy experience. In fact, they don't even offer a standard Crystal Chronicles experience, if that means anything at all, because these games are kind of all over the place. My Life as a King is a city builder where you command teenagers to go play Final Fantasy without you, and you get to read about it on their feed later. My Life as a Darklord is a tower defense game, but inside of a tower, and looks like those mobile games that people lose purposefully to piss you off in the ads. I know that playing Dirge of Cerberus and then these games as the Final Fantasies that I chose to make videos on doesn't really do me any favors, as I swear the non-mainline titles and spin-offs are good guy, but I do swear it, they are. And I don't need to tell you to play Tactics, just play it for 5 seconds, it'll change your life. But I really like the Crystal Chronicles games and their themes of hope for the future, and that the next generation will lead the way, and the older generation is there to support them. It's a perfect society without all that miasma business. So it's basically the opposite of real life, but that's what fantasy is for. Finally, these games are direct sequels to the original GameCube release, and they follow the rebuilding of the world after the miasma that once made communities huddle around crystals for safety dissipates. Back when you needed your ornate crystal cup just to walk around outside, or else you turn into a monster. And God forbid that cup doth not runneth over every year, or your town's crystal becomes a paperweight, and everyone you've ever known and loved and your whole town just becomes what another caravan will grind for materials later. And there's a bug too. There's not a lot of story to talk about with the original though, it's very minimal. But the way you experience the story was new to me when I was young, by having to actively talk to NPCs and read the context from areas you explore to get a bigger picture of the world. But My Life as a King / Darklord tell their stories a little more straightforward, and with unfortunately less variety and gameplay. But now they have a whole world to explore again, and we get to see the beginnings of both a new kingdom and a new future for its people. These games together tell a complete story. Think of King as Act 1, Darklord as Act 2, and Act 3 came out January 9th and it fucking rocks. Quick note before I begin, these games cannot be bought nowadays. They're forever stuck on the Wii shop, so you either need to emulate it or find some workaround on a physical Wii. And back in the day, they were criticized pretty heavily for their expensive ass DLC that locked a lot of content behind multiple single-digit priced purchases. But since you don't have the ability to purchase the game now, you might as well get the DLC however you get the game. So pirate it. I'm saying to steal it. Go to a website and download illicit copies with no intention of money being transferred, even though you can't transfer money for these games anymore. When I said it's a city builder like a fucking hour ago, I mean it's less city skylines and more like Banished. Or maybe Kenshi, since you do play as a person in the world, but also nothing like that game at all. It's very focused on the microeconomics. You're building individual houses and shops, and the people who inhabit the town live in the houses and go to the shops. If you want, you could follow them around all day until bedtime. They don't really do anything besides shop and talk, but you can. Each home you build generates taxes at the end of the day that you can spend on whatever you want, but mostly they go towards funding weapons, armor, and skills to make the quests that you post a bit easier for those who go on them. But it can also be used to fund the Adventurers Guild itself, which gives them more money per quest that they're successful on. It's an RPG technically, but the role you play is more like Quartermaster than Swordmaster, and this is the gameplay, by the way. Well, I think I could play this for like 14 hours. Your goal is to prepare your adventurers as best you can and send them out into the world, clearing dungeons and beating bosses to expand the realm and make your little town into a full kingdom. And doing that requires administration and forward thinking, not something seen in many Final Fantasy games outside of deciding not to spend all your gil you made on a minion you get from content you hate doing. On paper it sounds boring, and watching someone else play it, probably super boring, but when you play it you do get wrapped up in the minutia of the day-to-day. You love seeing your adventurers running around, gearing up, and coming together to take down a boss to unlock a new building. Watching your town burst with life as the day goes on, and when a little guy gets injured or just needs a personal day, I feel bad that the journeys I'm sending them on are harming them. And I feel like a bureaucrat with all this paperwork that you get from your best friends. Chime is your bedtime decider and logistics expert. Hugh Yerg is a badass looking warrior, but all he really does is train others. Some Moogles are here. They don't do much, but aren't they so cute? Don't you just love Moogles? I love Moogles. And Pavlov is here as a general information dealer, and he might be the first character in the entire franchise to say poop. So he's a big deal. Square also took the design from this game and put it into World of Final Fantasy as the Quacho, and I'm a big fan of the Quacho Queen, so it's nice to see him again. But this doesn't matter without a reason to care. In My Life as a King, you play as Prince Leo. Now that the miasma that covered the world is gone, a new age of exploration has arrived. This leads the young prince to the ruins of Patarak, the land once belonging to his father, King Epitaph, who ventured out to create a new land for himself. Get it, by the way, Epitaph? Like epitaph? I think we're wandering into some nuance here. But sometime before the events of the game, a monster known only as the Darklord came out of the crystal in the center of the town. The king evacuated the town and fought the Darklord with a power known as Architect, but couldn't beat him, so he was captured. Enter Leo, your little avatar in this beautiful town and prime real estate locator, here to find his father and re-establish this land because it's what he would have wanted. The crystal gives out the power of Architect so you can bring back the townsfolk the old king banished for their own safety. The issue with being gone so long is that monsters are growing in mass around the town though, and there is a small mystery in this, and one I didn't really pick up on during my playthrough, but it was said that before the miasma there were no monsters, but they're still here despite the miasma leaving. Apparently a Uke in the game when talked to will say how weird this is and that the definition of what is a monster may have to change. And I like this little quote, especially after the ending of My Life as a Darklord. Crystal Chronicles Ring of Fates goes into this pre-miasma stuff and shows monsters did exist, but that isn't very important for this, and the mystery of the monsters is cleared up well enough with a pretty simple explanation. This is where you start to acquire adventurers. People tend to think of the protagonists of JRPGs as kids, even though the majority of them are adults, at least in the games I've played. And look, I'm not going to play Touhou. I'm sure they're 5,000 years old, but they look like fetuses. But the Crystal Chronicles series really does revolve around kids doing all the adventuring. They even defeat an otherworldly host of all the world's troubles at the end of the game too, but random guys with swords defeating God at the end of a JRPG is par for the course. The adventurers will go out on quests or behests that you post daily. And at the beginning of the game, it's a lot of warriors with wooden swords fighting goblins. But as you fill out the list of buildings, they gain access to more advanced weapons, skills, armor, and even different jobs. Warrior, thief, black mage, and white mage. No monk or red mage, and also no advanced jobs, but 4 jobs matches the 4-person party of the original games. All jobs are available to the Clavats, which are the only tribe you'll have unlocked at the beginning of the game. And if you only had the base game with no DLC, the only tribe you'll ever have. And the game's DLC kind of cost a lot. If you add the price of the DLC and the game itself, it comes out to $40 in 2008. That's about equal to the buying power of $60 today. Pretty much the price of a brand new Final Fantasy game like Tactics: The Evil East Chronicles. Does the game have as much content as Tactics? Fuck no, not even close. I don't remember having an issue with beating the game without DLC when I was younger, but since you need to pirate the game nowadays to even get it, just grab that too. And by the way, if you're emulating, please turn on dual core on Dolphin, or else it'll run 60 seconds per frame when everyone wakes up without it. Selkies can only be thieves, Lilties only warriors, and Uhhhs are either white or black mages depending on the gender of the Uhhh you recruit. Their stats are much more aligned with the job their tribe chooses, and if you put their homes next to the job buildings, their stats are even better for it. It's cool to have the city layout not just be cosmetic, but you end up creating some weird segregation where the Selkies are in the gambling slums and Lilties have their little warrior society off to the side, and Uhhhs live in their little magic circle jerk with fucking 2 buildings, la-di-da, keeping to themselves and knowing magic. They're like elves or witches in a forest, and they're probably up to something, brewing a sinister potion for Markiplier to sell to you, perhaps. Too many Clavats gets boring to look at, honestly, so the tribes are a nice visual flair. When the old heads I recruited at the beginning of the game got busy, I needed people. I said people. Close enough. The tribes have a je ne sais quoi about them that I really like. Seeing how they lived together during the original game makes them the picture of societal unity because of how much they went through and how strong of a bond they came out with. Just do yourself a favor and forget about the Crystal Bearers. Building taverns lets adventurers team up before heading out on behests. Even if you only had one behest and all your available guys went out on the same one, apparently they just took different routes to get there. But the party system doesn't work fantastically. You can set up a custom party with one of every job, and that will generally keep your party alive with all their skills. But if you let the adventurers make up their own party before heading off, sometimes they'll just go with 2 or 3 people instead of 4. I wish there was a better way to have the guys you actually want to go on a specific quest, go on a specific quest. The adventurers who line up for whatever quest seems random. Lower level characters will tend to go for lower level behests, but sometimes that isn't true. And my new recruit with 10 gil in his pocket and a linen bag for armor will really look so excited to go fight a level 40 demi-dragon from Pandemonium. And you know what? Fuck it, do it. You'll learn. The dungeons aren't just combat, you're basically scouting them. And the more times your adventurers run the dungeon, it becomes safer and shorter. So rushing the boss too early ends with your party being exhausted and more than likely fucked up, and you get the incredibly scary skull next to their name if they lose, which you will see quite a bit if you aren't focused on upgrading skills and weapons. I spent a while just kind of dying to bosses and not really knowing why. I want to blame the party system for not working great or weapons/skills being pretty expensive, but I think sometimes it's down to the randomness of the levels you don't actually get to see. Oh great, this team died 3 times in a row, fuck my stupid ass in half. Okay, can we please kill a boss? Please, pretty please. How about I give you a holiday? We call it Do Your Job Day, and we celebrate it before you actually do something. Combat is really not the part I care about the most. I like walking around the town and figuring out how to make my town make sense by finding someone's billion-year-old photo bucket picture of their town and copying that. The townsfolk have a lot to say about the events ongoing too, because they've seen it before, and they are scared of it. Imagine dealing with a Darklord twice in your life. Y'all motherfuckers would crumble after 1. A medal that cures laziness? Fuck, maybe these videos would come out faster if I had one of those. They also accuse you of wanting to fuck Chime, which I don't. Dungeons are the main way of obtaining blueprints for buildings, but I like the early way you had to get some, which was by asking Mogatello to draw some for you. Since you're a pampered prince, you never left the castle, and so never went out for bread or to a park, so he imagines it so you don't have to. Which explains Architect a bit. It's the power to put ideas to form, and it implies not only that you are bringing the past memories or ideas back to the present day, but that your kingdom is being put to form through these ideas. But making a building isn't hard. It just takes a resource, and you get that resource so often that you'll be close to maxed out by the middle of the game. I wish there was more to say about the building, but it's just there. It's very utilitarian in its design, and there are a few frivolities to spice up the surroundings. Mage buildings are honestly kind of too big, and it throws off the silhouette of the town, and then silky buildings are just huts with sticks. So much of the design flows except for a few things that just stick out far too much. Most of the buildings are all very cute though, a bakery for the neighborhood to get dinner at and a large emporium, but most of the buildings are for the adventurers, and they visit every building every day that they go out, no matter what. And that causes a significant delay in them going out on the actual behest. It could even be the end of the day before they actually head out, which doesn't really matter, I guess, because it's not like you're actually fucking playing anything. I wish there was more to say about the building aspect of the game, but it matters less than what the buildings do, and normally once you place one down, you'll forget about it unless you need to eminent domain it for a park. Once you've finally gotten far enough into snuffing out monster dens, you finally meet the Darklord. He first shows up in the visage of your father, but that glamour is dispelled by Chime, seeing that the original king didn't talk like, well, actually, he makes sense. Prioritizing what is best for the kingdom is what makes you a rightful ruler more than birthright. Okay, bye. Hey man, what's up? You gonna tell me some other evil stuff like be nice to homeless people or don't throw things on the ground? Well, he finally takes off the deadbeat dad disguise and, yep, that's a Darklord. That is what a Darklord would look like, isn't it? The story actually gets a little interesting here and creates a weird scenario where this $15 WiiWare game has an ambiguous bad guy whose goals oddly seem to align with yours, but you don't know why. He wants the kingdom to succeed. He wants you to be passionate about this place because this was once his land. He was the original owner of this architect power, and his land was once for monsters to live their lives normally, away from mankind who would attack them. But when the miasma cleared up, his soul crumbled from the agony of the monsters fearing their own demise. So he took the burden of everyone's emotions onto himself, like a good king. And when King Epitaph came and created his own kingdom here, the Darklord wanted freedom and promised him a title and more land for this favor. Of course, the weird skeleton horse Faustian sounding deal didn't sit right, so Epitaph fights him and loses. His soul now resides in a temple behind the castle. So he didn't kill the king, and he seems sympathetic to this realm. So let's go fuck him up right now. Calling the whole kingdom to march on the temple feels extremely cinematic, knowing just how much your people have prepared for an event like this. They're rescuing not only a powerful man, but their current ruler's father. And there's a very nice moment when all the family of the adventurers rally to their side, wishing they could go with them and promising them a nice home to come back to when it's done. It could have brought a tear to my eye, but then the funny penguin fell down and I rubbed my belly and farted and laughed instead. It's a very sentimental moment though, and it really feels like the game is coming to an end, especially while the adventurers are out and you can walk around the kingdom with Chime reminiscing on the buildings. But my guys didn't do it on their first try. Thanks, Lilty. This time the Darklord is defeated. Or should have been, but he comes from the crystal once more because we only destroyed his body, not soul, I think? Waxing about how great his kingdom was and how much he sacrificed, even saying that you must bear the weight of the crown alone, and if he is to die, he'll take Leo with him. But if you could believe this Japanese game ends with the power of friendship and human connection coming together to stop an evil spell. And you get a glimpse into the mind of someone here. I think it's the Darklords, but it's never explicitly stated. I'm just going off of characterization from the second game. We are what he aspired to. We ran the kingdom in a way nobody else could, and we deserve the title of Archlord. The people gather at the dawn of a new day to witness King Epitaph stepping down from the throne in favor of you. And a voice comments again that the kingdom fucking rules and that you rock so hard. And the record of this place will be chronicled into history, forever to be remembered, not like Ozymandias at all. Until 1,000 years later and any progress here is forgotten and everyone hates each other and the co-op is cool, but I don't like the motion controls and I don't really... the end. Oh, an A rank. Let me just chronicle that into my gaming history, and I just saved over my file and I can't access that save again. Great, I'll just go fuck myself. Thank you, Nier. So the Darklord is an interesting figure. He comes across as an evil, scary king, mainly because of how he looks. But when he realized you were a powerful enough king to protect what you hold dear along with your allies, he dissipated willingly, almost happily. And it led me to be really confused about what I was to take away from this ending. Sure, there's a sequel, but you'd expect to understand a little more about the major antagonist. Maybe they didn't expect to make a second game. Maybe they just wanted a weird bad guy with a strange motive to keep you entertained. So a year later, they released Echoes of Time. Oh, and then they released My Life as a Darklord. They actually put out a full other game between these two, and they only released a year later. Square Enix was serious about this franchise. The sequel came out, and it honestly answered every question about My Life as a King's story that I could have asked for, while also recontextualizing the major character that bridges the thematic gap between the two games. Quick disclaimer, Windows 11 did that funny BitLocker thing and made me reinstall Windows, so I lost all the My Life as a Darklord footage, and I don't feel like replaying it because, as I'll get to later, the game is kind of fucking hard, and the song that plays during the battles gave me a migraine after the 10 or so hours it took for me to beat it, plus the DLC chapter. So thank you Killin' Cat for the long play I will be using to show footage, and I'll also splice some footage I re-recorded again to show off some specific stuff he didn't get to. If I made any money from YouTube, I would give it all to you, Cat. I love you, thank you. Link to the video in the description. Now, remember what I said about this game at the beginning? My Life as a Darklord is a tower defense game, but inside of a tower, and looks like those mobile games that people lose purposefully to piss you off in the ads. Also, I'm gay. Dude, come on, don't admit to that. When you think of Final Fantasy Tower Defense, you might be thinking of Crystal Defenders, and if you are, then you have elite ball knowledge. And if you don't know about that game, then you have no right to attack me on any opinion that I have in this whole video. You try to out-FF the FFer? Yeah, what the F ever, dude. It also fulfills every Final Fantasy player's dream of becoming a woman after spending a lot of money. This game is level-based, and the beginning of every level, you build your tower from bottom to top, filling it with enemies inside of special rooms designed to give different effects to the monsters you put inside of them, or a detrimental effect to the enemy. You control the bad guys this time and fight off adventurers made up of different jobs and races having different fighting styles, speeds, and weaknesses. It's pretty different from the last game, but it wasn't always meant to be. Originally, it was going to be another city builder, but the team decided to be original. Original, like having a gothic Lolita punk-styled character in the late 2000s. Very original, very original. Tsundere, ooh, that's original. Oh, and she has a little heart hairpiece. Oh, that's so original, darling. And costumes referencing characters from other Final Fantasy games, or as we call it, original costumes. I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about this because I wish they would have gone with the original city builder with monsters idea instead, because I'm not a fan of tower defense. I used to play Flash tower defense games in the 2000s on Newgrounds, super simple ones that felt a little bit more like time wasters, but eventually got a little too tough, and then I would switch to Meat and Fuck or Super Deep Throat. If an adventurer reaches the top of the tower, you're dead. There are multiple ways to stop this from happening. Monsters for them to fight, of course, but you can place rooms that don't damage, but instead debuff or straight up send adventurers back down a few levels, or the nifty fucking Dick Smasher 5000 that cuts HP directly in half but has a huge wind up before it can be used again. And what a good option to have, especially against bosses. So you could consider all the tools you have to be all your extra lives, and I guess I do too, but the difficulty of the game is kind of fucking insane for an old guy like me, and I have a sneaking suspicion that the DLC adds some frankly overpowered monsters and rooms and items and costumes, hoping you'd buy them to make the difficulty seem a little, while still high, at least reasonable. Oh, and the whole game and all DLCs cost $67 back in the day. That's a little close to $100 today, and that's fucked up. The extra chapter costs $1 less than one of the costume DLCs. Fuck off, dude. I guess it doesn't matter, because if you're going to play this game now, you might as well grab everything, but I like to mention it still because if you have the mind of someone who was dealing with this back in the day like me, it leads you to have a bit of a bias, even though I'm not really trying to. But I'm done with my griping session now. As a sequel to My Life as a King, I love it. The tonal change from a slightly solemn coming-of-age story for both your character and the world itself to being a cute girl yelling at tonberries and having a fit so hard she has people coming to destroy her tower over it is kind of sudden if you play them back to back, but I don't hate it. It's still a coming-of-age story, but it's about emotional maturity. Mira is definitely a conflicted character, and you do see that in a very literal way with her design. It's not subtle, but Final Fantasy hardly is. She's split right down the middle, one darker toned and one lighter, and she's the new Darklord, daughter of the Darklord from My Life as a King, and she's pissed. She declares war on the world, so she starts out this game with a bit of a bang, but she's not very intimidating. In fact, people who see her aren't scared. They think she's a weirdo with a big dumb heart on top of her janky ass tower, so the plan is to find out who the biggest, baddest guy around is and beat the shit out of them. And since the character who beat the meteor parasite isn't around apparently, we gotta beat up this callback to the original Crystal Chronicles, Ball Dot from the Striped Brigands. These were the guys who would steal from the Tipa caravan in the original, and I think that's all they did. And then the old guy died. But it wasn't actually Baldat, it was Beldat, his younger sister and leader of the Stripped Brigands. She isn't all that powerful and doesn't have any treasure, except for secrets, and she has a doozy of one. Mira, beloved dark creature from the pit of the abyss of these 9 circles of fiery hell, is actually half Clavat, half demon. I'm assuming the demon half is more of a spiritual thing because she doesn't really have any monstrous characteristics besides her devilish smile. And that is explained later, but she joins the small cast of half-tribal characters. Chime being half Clavat, half Selkie, Fiona from Crystal Chronicles is half Clavat, half Lilty, which just feels weird to say, let alone put 2 PNGs of the tribes on the screen so you can just imagine how that works. So since Beldat wasn't all that important and she just said a secret to her face and left, we have to go fight someone else. Honestly, the story is much less interesting, at least this early on. It's much more thrilling since it comes at a pace faster than My Life as a King's cutscenes, but you do get so little important information in each of these, and what you do get is just told to you by this purple omnipotent crystal, a cutscene whenever we take over a specific area and then off to the next batch of levels. I guess other games do that too, and they just call it playing the game, but playing this game is actually, I don't know how to describe it. I think the hardest part about playing the game for me was knowing that I wouldn't have much to say about it outside of the story while I was playing it. There were a lot of systems constantly working together in My Life as a King that kept the game feeling dynamic, like the RNG of the dungeons and making sure adventurers actually had enough money to buy the shit you were peddling. This game is extremely planned out in terms of what enemies show up in each level and when. So you can easily come back to a level that you just lost with all the knowledge and dominate next time, which is in many tower defense games anyway, but I think the genre is a little dead, so that needs to be explained. The game heavily relies on a rock, paper, scissors element to the battles. Warriors are weak to mages, mages weak to archers, archers weak to warriors. There's red and white mages, but they just take damage. So it plays a little like RuneScape? You learn these naturally early on because the first Ukes to walk up to your tower will beat the shit out of your goblins and leave you traumatized. So you become a little more vigilant on what enemies are coming up next and quicker to counter them. And different enemies attack in different patterns. Some will attack monsters randomly, all the monsters on the floor, or whoever is the weakest on said floor. Some can straight up attack the core of the floor, called the artifact, directly, and eliminate the floor out from under you, but those are more rare and can be dealt with by putting a monster who will eat that damage. It's easier to pay for another tank than the entire floor plus the monsters. Before each level, you can see what type of enemies will appear and in how many numbers, so you get a general idea of what you're up against. Levels will have one type of enemy that appears more than others, but on average, it's a great mix of the 3 main ones, and that keeps you constantly going between your monster and room tabs to make sure you can counter whatever's coming up next. And building your tower can be done non-sequentially, so if someone blows right through a floor and you're not ready for them on the next floor, you can just shove one between the two and fill it with fast enemies to keep them occupied, Sometimes it's worth it to make a bullshit room just to stop and advance. And included is one of the weirdest level up systems I think I've seen in a strategy game like this. Again, I haven't played many tower defense games, so let me know if I'm running my damn mouth, but leveling up your monsters is done outside of the battle with points called karma. And these leveled up monsters have more HP, attack, and sometimes will increase a status effect or a bonus to the effect they have. It sounds pretty standard, but after leveling them up with karma, you still have to level them up in-game with extra monster summoning resources that you get from defeating enemies or from items you gain on the journey, but it's still finite. I think that the amount of attack and HP they get is so negligible unless you just fully upgrade them to their level 5 version. But after that, you've either paid for that monster once or twice over again, and if that monster dies, it hits way worse economy-wise. And the introduction of DLC monsters makes it much easier with their larger power, HP, and attack speed compared to what you get naturally in the game. So you can avoid leveling for a large portion of the game with these DLC monsters. And the DLC floor layouts and items also give you such an advantage, like rooms that can delay adventurers much more by healing monsters or debuffing the adventurers. The items have an advantage by giving you skills during battle or more resources in the level. Precious currency you just couldn't get without paying. The costumes are also weird. They give you skills that you can use in battles or more starting currency like the items, but the skills are not good at all. They are low-leveled skills and the starting currency bonus is only 50. That's enough for 2 rooms or 1 monster. So why buy them if they were $6 for 3 costumes, making all costumes end up being $12? Well, they're cute. Alright, they're kind of worthless, except for the starting currency one, but Mira's original costume is the best, and I kind of regret not just playing the whole game with it. So the point of the game is to traverse the world, beating up the bozos who try to climb your dark, magically growing tower, and running into people who either don't take you seriously or treat you like you're nothing. I like the story, I really do, and it's much more interesting than the gameplay, thankfully. Along the journey, you meet up with people from the past games over and over. Fiona from Chronicles shows up in her old disguise, Chime, Hugh, Yerg, and Stiltskin show up from My Life as a King. It's very coincidental to see everyone along this path, and Fiona even says some strange things like she wants us to be the bridge between man and monster. Well, interesting offer, but considering I have never once thought about that in my life, I will kill you. Or an emotional response will give her the time to escape. Tonberry, my very real Tonberry made out of Tonberry meat. You're my only friend. Only one I can rely on to give me real monstrous advice. Am I going fucking crazy? I did not remember this revelation from the last time I played, and the fact that Tonberry just looks like a patchwork doll never struck me as odd. I thought it was just a cute design to go with how cute Mira is supposed to look, and that solidifies their relationship through that design, but nope, Klabot. Here Yerg gets his shit kicked in, but he's impressed, even praising us for our skills of corralling monsters enough to put up a successful defense. That only confuses Mira more. Why is everyone so damn nice? I just want to kill! But suddenly out of the Dark Crystal comes the old Darklord, the one we defeated in the first game and Mira's dada. He's been setting up the events to bring these powerful figures to the tower to see just how strong Mira is and how her rule is the right one for monster kind. And he has faith that she will abandon the warpath and take up the role as an ambassador between the two races and lead the world into complete and total harmony. That's a lot of assumptions happening here, and this characterization of the Darklord is different from the first game. Of course, he had a desire for your town and My Life as a King to grow and become as grand as possible, but for the majority of the game, it had a sinister undertone to it. Like he wanted it just to have it at the height of its power to turn it back to monsters and unleash them in the world. And maybe that was half true, but at the end he was seemingly proud that you led your kingdom with care and total trust in others. This Darklord is an evolution of that. Not only could the little king lead, but he was an inspiration. And Mira can too. So he recruited the ones who helped the king with his growth and sent them to Mira for her to grow as well. Maybe it's his old Selkie past coming out and desiring some good for the tribes as well. So Mira hears this, and after some consideration, decides to go to Padarak and beat the fuck out of the king. I like this moment because if you have a save file from the last game, the king and his kingdom will be what you named yours. I saved over my town save file, so I feel like I was destroying it for the second time. Her motive is unclear for going into this fight, switching between wanting to take over all the people in the world and just doing what her heart says. But she finally gets what she wants. After fighting the king, she declares that her conquest is over and that she's starting another one for peace. Her victory over Leo was just for everyone to know what she's capable of, so don't fuck with her. With this victory, she's setting a new path for the world, one without the strife that's still been going on even after the miasma. Also, the crystal and the Darklord's existence are the only things keeping monsters alive, so if she was killed, it also destroyed an entire race. So it's a win-win. And this bond is solidified in the DLC chapter where Mira goes to the US Virgin Islands for a vacation, but reads a note addressed to her about something called the King's Emblem. So she cuts to snorkeling and heads to its location, but it was just Fiona again, no emblem. She just wanted Mira to get a beautiful view of the ocean and the bright blue sky, and she wants to rule with Mira. It's a very cute moment. I like that it further drives mankind's commitment to this alliance and not just Mira's. She also gets hit by lightning for lying to her though. That was a bad move, dude. When a white woman with a split dye hair is scorned, watch out, that's all I'm saying. Now monster and tribe kind are going to work together, and the hard work of Mira and the Little King will be chronicled forever, until 1,000 years later when the tribes hate each other and monsters come back in an antagonistic role, and Selkies are terrorists and Lilties are an authoritarian government, and Ukes are genocide, and that's the end of the duology. It starts with King Leo setting off to find his father at the end of the world, and turns into the Queen of the Damned deciding to live in peace with the world as long as everyone else tries their hardest as well. I really appreciate that these two games kept their optimistic outlook even when the second one starts with you specifically on a quest to take over the world. Mira and Leo have an interesting mirrored story where they are both taking over the roles of their father, and not only do they succeed in these roles, but they exceed. And within a short amount of time, they shook up the foundation of a world that people knew. There's no miasma, and now the animosity between people and monsters is starting to crumble. It really feels like this is the climax of what the entire Crystal Chronicles story was trying to do. Like, it could end right here. And despite being WiiWare titles that probably very few people played compared to other Final Fantasy spin-offs, I think the story ended perfectly. Looking back on these games all these years later, they really hold a special place in my heart, and I think it's because of how optimistic and genuine the games felt. A very big emphasis on family and the different tribes of the world coming together to make a worthwhile future. I would love to do Crystal Bearers next, but I don't have a Wii to play my copy, and emulating it is like 7 frames a second. Or I could do the original Crystal Chronicles, but I don't feel like dealing with the chalice, honestly. Or asking my friends to use Dolphin Netplay, or dealing with the remaster's bad online lobby system. It's so playing that game is kind of a whole thing, isn't it? Fuck it, next video is about Moogles. Stay tuned for me using Moogle paint to draw dicks.